Hello and welcome back. G-Man here. I've got a very special video for you today. I'm giving you the grand tour of my studio / lab. Let's get started. This is a Selena string ensemble. Bought this one for about, I think it was 500 bucks from a buddy, and it was in really bad shape, mechanically anyway. The case was in shambles, falling apart, so I built a new case out of cabinet grade maple, and the electronics were in decent shape. It still needed some new big capacitors on the power supply, but it currently fully functions and sounds absolutely wonderful. And then right behind it, Juno 106, one of my favorite analog polysynths. It's just got such a fantastic sweet sound. I put the gravitational slingshot chips in there from Analog Renaissance, and they just sound absolutely fantastic. I do have a video demonstrating those sounds as well, but not to be outdone, this would be my favorite synthesizer, the Oberheim Matrix 12. I'm getting wonderful analog pads out of that one all the time. This is my Percussion Eurorack System, and Future Retro Transient Plus. That one has the upgrade, Bacillus Iteratus Alter, a couple of squeeze compressors in that one, warps, and this is where some of my filters end up, so I can filter percussion sounds. My Transistor 82, and then the synthesizer box by Pittsburgh, the Hydrosynth. I basically picked this up last March, many months ago, and I've been programming sounds, so hopefully soon I will be able to demonstrate some of the sounds, some of the patches that I'm making for it, and the patches will eventually become available. It's slow going. I spend hours and hours on this thing programming sounds. You can really get lost in it. It's wonderful. Keystep Pro, love this thing. This is what I do most of my Eurorack sequencing on right now. The Behringer Neutron, fantastic little synthesizer. It doesn't sound like your typical 3340 VCO type synths. The Pro One, SH101, quite a few other synths, but this doesn't sound like that at all. Wonderful BBD section in it. Yes, nice filters. My Eurorack system today, this is in constant flux. One of my favorite new modules is the Modbat Performer. Really digging that. Use Temps Util quite a bit. And then there's the sample drum. Oh, I love this. This is a sample playback. The Toomey DNA Symbiotic Waves. This is a digital oscillator that gets quite a bit of use. That's my system. Tektronix oscilloscope. I use this in electronics for troubleshooting and studying different circuits. I've got a Dimension C. This is the remake by Wazacraft. And the Behringer digital delay pedal comes in handy for stereo widening purposes. I like to cut my delays down really short and pan them left and right. The Electron Digita, fantastic percussion playback unit for percussion type sounds. You got 8 tracks of internal samples, and then 8 tracks of external MIDI sequencing. So I plan to use this quite a bit with my percussion system. Mackie Mixer 802 VLZ3. This is where all my submixes come through. I usually record live in one shot, and then I do post-production. I may add some parts. I'll use EQ and compression and all that to kind of dress the tracks up. Strymon Big Sky, fantastic reverb. This gets a lot of use with my external synthesizers. I've started using these effects aids. I got one dedicated to reverb and one dedicated to delays. So those sounds almost as good as this Strymon Big Sky, and then right next to it, the Eventide Time Factor. I use this mostly with external outboard synthesizers. And my old classic, my first love, the RE20, the Roland Space Echo. If you've ever had one of the original machines that use tape, the feedback is really dependent on using fresh tape in those machines, but this one you'll never have to worry about that. You can still get lots of feedback, never have to worry about replacing tapes. And then there's this Super Phaser PH2, an old classic made in Japan. Moving on, let's talk about the rack system. Here we are. Got the Patch Bay on top, then the Proteus is right under it. This is one of the first synthesizers that I learned how to program synthesizers on back in the day, back in the 90s. Right under it, the JV2080, a fantastic sounding synthesizer. I end up usually sampling phrases out of this thing and putting it into either the ESI 32 or over to the sample drum in my Eurorack system. I have two TX81Zs, FM synthesizers. You've seen my demos on these. These can sound very organic and very lively. Right under it, one of the first projects that I built, the Jürgen Heibel triple chorus. This is inspired by the Art Selena type triple choruses. It sounds to me anyway more like the chord poly-6 type ensemble sounds. And good old analog DBX 160A compressor limiter. Great analog sound in that. And then a good old workhorse, a dual compressor 166A. This is a more transparent type compressor, but still can make drum loops sound nice and fat and basses nice and punchy. And a Kai S612. It's one of the few hardware samplers that can actually change the start and end points for loops live in real time as you're playing back the loops. Very, very small sampling time and audio fidelity, which is great on these old samplers. You like them to sound lo-fi and crunchy. And then right under it, we've got the Akai S900. Nice, crunchy, lo-fi audio sampler. Everything I run through it sounds like a dream. Roland Alpha Juno 1. It was my first analog polysynthesizer. My cassette tape deck and tons of dust on there. I like to run a lot of audio samples through the tape deck to give them some of that tape saturation, which sounds really nice, especially when you're pitch shifting samples down. That tape saturation just sounds absolutely wonderful. The Mini Korg Univox 700S, all kinds of different names for it, but it's the same thing. It's the predecessor to what you see above it. The Korg MS-20. This is an MK1 back from the 70s, and mine has the pulse width modulation mod on it. I started out with the MS-20 Mini, and I loved it so much but was not fond of the small keys. And I found a good deal on this. This was beat up and formerly owned in Dallas, Texas by Polyphonic Spree. Over here, this is the workstation where I build all my Eurorack modules that I have for sale. And then over here, this is where I do my designs. I lay them out in schematics here. I designed the PCBs. I've got quite a few things put away still in storage that I just simply, as you can tell, don't have space to set them up. Behringer RD6, as well as the Drum Brute Impact, and the Roland TR8. A Behringer VC340. Somewhere is a Roland SH101. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed this little video. That's where things are at today. Anyway, thank you for watching. I hope you like, comment, and subscribe.